So we're here at a recent listing of mine. I've got Matthew Doring from Doring Design and Build, contractor extraordinaire. We thought this place was a great opportunity to help educate and inform about older homes and what to look for when you're doing a renovation. How's that sound? Great? Let's do it. Let's go take a look. Matthew, this home is from 1911, and kind of for any place. What kinds of things do you recommend that people look for when they're coming through with their agent or when they're attending an open house to know whether it's a quality home or not?
I think for your average client coming to look at a home, something that I've found really helpful is looking for pride of ownership. So that can be identified in many ways. First, approaching the house, the condition of the roof. Are the shingles peeling? Is the eaves trough, are they connected? Once you enter the home, some really good identifiers can be, is the place clean? And you know, if there are people that respect their home, the big ticket items for the most part are taken care of. But some really telltale signs are water spotting on the ceiling. The basement, does it smell musty? Does it feel damp? Those can be some really good, easy ways to identify if a house has been maintained.
As far as the water spotting goes, that would be maybe indication like of a leak from the roof, or if it's the ceiling on the main floor, it could be like a leak from a bathroom, something like that. So then as far as like, you know, I mentioned, how do you know if a home is like a quality or not, if it's going to be a disaster? The thing that I kind of warn my clients about is like, look, there could be things behind the walls that is very difficult to suspect, right? Very difficult to figure out. What, in your opinion, are some of the more expensive kind of like hidden things that people might encounter?
So I would say like the top three biggest things where we, run into are electrical. So if there's knob and tube wiring, and if it's running in just a small area, this can be a very inexpensive repair. If the entire house has knob and tube and needs to be cut open to replace it, this is more expensive. Another big one is, especially in a finished basement, if your foundation's leaking. So it would require waterproofing, either from the interior or exterior. It's a big one. That is a big one. And the last one I would say that's not so much a repair, but most clients, until it gets properly tested, is things like asbestos and vermiculite. That is something that can be an unknown when looking or purchasing any home.
Okay, and just for everybody's records, vermiculite, what is that?
Vermiculite is an insulation that is toxic to humans.
You can identify it pretty specifically. It's kind of like clumpy, not your typical like pink kind of insulation.
100%. So a really good way to kind of get all these questions answered and other things that could be toxic within the home is a DSS survey. So that is where they come in and they test everything throughout the home to make sure there's no toxic mold in the house.
Let's say you've got a house and for the most part, people have determined that it's in decent shape. Needs some like cosmetic updating, nothing catastrophic in terms of foundation, roof, mechanics, whatever. So let's talk about some cosmetic renos. Ballpark figure, what are people looking at in terms of doing the flooring, redoing a kitchen, doing a bathroom, just kind of get a sense of like people can start adding things up in their head as they're walking through a place.
Yeah, good question. So when it comes to hardwood flooring, the demolition, the subfloor preparation, the installation, and then the floor protection after it's been installed, it's around $10 per square foot. Now, on top of that, there would also need the material, which I would say can range anywhere from 5 to 15 per square foot.
Depending on what they choose.
Of course.
Right, you can get engineered hardwood from Costco, you can get vinyl, and you can get really high-end.
Absolutely.
From wherever.
Yep, and as far as a kitchen kitchen goes, the demolition, the installation of all the mechanicals, plumbing, electrical, and gas, insulation, drywall, the trim, the painting, and like the backsplash, I would say you would be looking at around 20 to 30,000. And then on top of that, of course, there's a range in cabinetry and countertops. So I would kind of hold the budget of 20 to maybe 75,000, including the cabinets and countertops.
What's your opinion on IKEA cabinetry?
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with IKEA at all. It's good stuff as long as it's installed properly.
That's the important part?
100%.
The installation?
Yeah.
Okay. We did a reno, as you know, you did our reno years ago, and we used IKEA cabinetry, and we're not seeing any kind of, faltering or cracking or peeling or anything like that. It's only been 5 years, but we've had good experience.
A lot comes down to the installation. And then for a washroom, what I would say for, a standard washroom, I would kind of hold the budget anywhere from 20 to 30,000 for a complete washroom renovation.
4 pieces,
Yeah.
What are some sneaky expensive parts of a reno? People wouldn't think, I've got my own answer because I've done videos on it in the past, but I'm just a realtor, you're the contractor. What are some things that really add up that people would not have thought cost a lot?
Plumbing fixtures is a big one. I would say lighting fixtures, that's another big one.
What I had said, and please disagree with me. This is not a video where you have to agree with everything I said, but the thing that I tell people, my clients when I'm walking through homes with them, is windows. Windows are on an individual level, not necessarily that expensive if you have to do one, but oftentimes the vintage of the windows is all the same. So you're looking at replacing all the windows at the same time. And the ones at the front of the house and the back of the house, and sometimes the front bedroom and back bedroom can be quite large. So that's what I've said. What's your take on that?
You know what? It's a really, really good point. Windows are very expensive. Like everything, there's there's the quality of the window and everything. But yes, to replace a whole house of windows, it is quite expensive. And again, with windows, because they last so long, you want to put in a quality window that's going to last the test of time.
When we did our reno, 2019, 2020, one thing that was sneaky expensive that I wasn't anticipating in terms of cost was trim and doors. And I just mean the materials, right? So this isn't necessarily a reflection on Matthew, right? Because you don't make the trim and the doors, right? You just install them and whatever. But I was shocked at how much the trim and doors cost. Now, mind you, I'd like to think that we did a high quality kind of trim. We did solid wood doors, but it was much more than I was expecting. So what's the range and what affects the range of value for something like trim and doors that can make it really expensive or relatively affordable?
Good question. So with trim and doors, on the lower end, using a shorter, baseboard casing out of MDF, using hollow core doors, definitely the most cost-effective option. Within your home, everything was poplar, solid wood doors. Of course, that's going to bring the price up. But you know what? It is a lot of work. The labor price to install an entire house of trim and doors, it's quite a bit of work. So it is expensive, but again, what I would kind of say is with trim and doors, that's something you put in and it's there for a long time.
And it's one of those finishing features of a place, right? That people feel like they're in a room that looks great, but they can't quite put their finger on it because it's just a living room or whatever. And then you realize, oh, they've done a really nice job with the trim that they've selected.
100%.
The style of the doors, all that kind of stuff.
And it is something that I would say gets typically overlooked a lot of times. And how many times do you use your door? Multiple times every day, and you don't really give a lot of thought to it. So it's definitely an important part of the home, but unfortunately it is quite expensive for sure.
I will admit, I wouldn't call it regret, but we have 2 young kids, as you know. I am terrified that one of them is going to get their hand caught in one of the doors. We've got 2 boys, they're always chasing after each other and then slamming the door on each other and whatever. And because those doors are so beefy, that one of them's going to put their hand through to stop the door, and then it's just going to chop off their fingers. And so I'm not saying it's rational, but it's definitely, having put it in, that's a fear that I have now.
Yeah, well, it's it's an 1 3/4 solid door, so I hope that doesn't happen. Yeah, knock on wood.
Me too, but yeah, it's an interesting side effect or afterthought. It's oh man, I'm constantly worried about kids breaking all their fingers and all this stuff in a door. But anyway. Powder rooms on the main floor. People typically look for them. They like them, especially families with young kids or older parents you're visiting, that kind of stuff. Don't have to do the stairs, whatever. People often just want to put them anywhere. Are they able to? Is there something that you look for to make it easy to put a powder room in? What kinds of advice can you give on that?
Yeah, for sure. So traditionally in most Toronto homes, when they were built, they didn't have a powder room on the main floor. Now in our culture, it is very important to have a powder room on the main floor. To answer your question about proximity and placement of it, anywhere closer to a drainage stack makes it much easier to run all the drainage. With that being said, depending on the level of renovation you're looking to have done, you can add a powder room anywhere you'd like on the main floor. It just may require more work in breaking the drainage into the concrete in the basement.
And I mean, we're kind of looking in this general direction because this home has this interesting kind of nook that I had thought could be a potential powder room because you're close to the kitchen, so you've got access to like water source and that kind of stuff. The bathroom upstairs is pretty much above this, so I thought there'd be a way to kind of tie into drainage and that kind of stuff. And you don't need much space for a powder.
No. If this could work into your overall floor plan, this would be an excellent spot to put it.
Okay, good to know. Now, let's talk about everyone's favorite topic, especially the people that I walk through a home with, taking down a wall. Yes. People love to just go, we'll just take down that wall, we'll just take down that wall. Yeah. Talk about what people need to know as far as taking walls down and you know what's needed and general costs, those kinds of things.
For sure. So yeah, removing walls, again, buzzword, very, very popular right now. Most important thing in removing a wall in a home is to confirm that it's not structural. Most walls within homes are just partition walls that they don't have any structural to it. If the wall though is structural, you're gonna need an engineered, whole engineered drawing that you need to get to applied for at the city, and you're gonna need the proper contractor to remove it. So to identify a load-bearing wall, in most cases a competent contractor can tell you, yes, this is or this is not a load-bearing wall, but this is always confirmed by an engineer. And if the wall is a load-bearing, at that point it goes in for permits and it gets removed safely and properly.
Not that we want anyone judging for themselves, unless they're an engineer or contractor, whether something is load bearing. But what are some signs that you're looking for that typical person could say, yeah, there's a decent chance this is a load bearing?
Yeah, really good question. A lot of it goes down to the basement. So if it's on the second floor, everything is getting transferred down to the basement. So if there are supporting columns within a basement, visible beams in a basement, and the direction of the floor joists. So if your basement's unfinished and you can see that the floor joists are running a certain way and there's columns or beams, this is a good way to identify that.
Okay. That they're all in line with each other on the different floors, you mean?
Exactly. Basically, it's called a point load, and that is transferring the weight down to a footing within the basement.
As far as return on investment, best bang for your buck, where should people be putting their money when they're looking at kind of getting the most return on a reno?
Again, different trains of thought on this. Personally, I like a main floor renovation and kitchen. Reason being, this is typically where the family spends the most time. It's the first thing people see when they walk into your home. Renovating your main floor, doing your kitchen, I think that's the best value personally.
I know you don't do this part necessarily. What would you say about curb appeal? Like exterior, front?
No, curb appeal is important. It's very important, but you don't live outside your home. You're living inside your home. So maybe for a sale to have the curb appeal, again, people are different trains of thought on it.
I'm probably thinking more like from a
100%.
From a real estate slant, right? But no, that's a really good point. Timelines. People want to reno main floor and upper. Maybe they'll do the basement another time, but they want to basically completely redo the main floor and the second floor. How long are we talking about?
What I would say, and again, every situation's different, right? But what I would typically say for a timeline for something like that, it would be in the 4 to 5 month range. And that would be when we're talking an extensive renovation, fully gutting it and redoing it.
Once you get the permits though, right?
Absolutely. Good. I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah, once permits are received, that's the timeline to be looking at.
And do you have a ballpark idea of like how long it's taking to get permits through this?
Absolutely. Yeah. So what I typically say to clients is we are able to do the engineering, the mechanical structural engineering, prepare the permits ready for submission in as little as a month. And for an interior renovation, not an addition or a new home, you're looking at about 1.5 to 2 months within the city. So the whole process is about 3 months from when you start to when you're ready to go.
So add that to the 4 to 5 months and you're talking 7, 8 months kind of in total.
Exactly.
For 2 floors of a home kind of.
Yep.
Very few people who are watching this are gonna be able to do that work on their own. They're gonna need to hire somebody to do it. What kinds of things should people be looking for in terms of like, how do I assess one contractor from another in terms of, the value that they bring and why I should hire them?
What I would say is, and listen, in Toronto, there's lots and lots out there. Really what I think is important is doing the background check on them. Speaking with some of their past clients, getting references. Are they insured? Are they not insured? Do they have licensing? Biggest thing that I guess could protect the client is the contract. What is in the contract? Is it detailed? what is included, what's not included. So I think with all of these things put together, that's going to help the client make an informed decision about selecting a contractor.
I'm going to put you a bit on the spot here because I didn't necessarily want this video to be a promotion of this listing necessarily, but it is on the market right now. What's your take on this home in terms of, all the stuff that we've talked about?
Yeah, I think going back to, when we first talked about it, pride of ownership. This is a dated house, absolutely. It could use some TLC, but you could tell the clients really cared about it. They really took care of it. And outside, the basement's dry. Could it use a new kitchen? Yeah, absolutely. But
you don't like the pink tile on the walls you're talking about?
I don't know about that, but you know what? Everything here is sound. That's what I would say.
Okay. Now there is full transparency, needs a wiring update, right? It still has a fuse panel instead of circuit breakers. Could you walk people through a little bit about, I know you're not an electrician.
No, absolutely.
What would be involved with that?
Listen, really straightforward process. What we typically do is we have an electrician come out. They do a full diagnostic of the home. They check every plug, every switch, everything, and then you're going to know exactly what kind of wiring you have in there. Knob and tube definitely by law needs to be replaced, but if this is just a panel upgrade, it's a very simple process. They schedule all the permits and disconnects with ESA and Toronto Hydro, and it's a one-day job.
Matthew, look, thank you, not just for doing the walkthrough and everything like that, but for anybody who's watching and is maybe in need of a contractor. I've had the pleasure of working with you, which is why you're here and how we're connected. You and your crew did our kind of full gut 3 levels of our semi in Midtown, and we're in the house 5 years later, and our 2 boys have destroyed the home. But in terms of your quality of work and everything like that, the house is really holding up great, and we haven't had any complaints, and we've been very pleased with everything. So certainly if you're watching and you're looking for a quality contractor, I'm not saying just hire Matthew right away, but make him one of your calls, because it's really important that you find someone who's honest and transparent and detailed code, all those things that Matthew talked about. Matthew exemplifies those things and more, so certainly give him a call.
Thank you very much. Very kind of you.
Thank you for your time.
Of course. Awesome.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You know what?